What's the worst way a person can ruin their life? Become dependent on hard drugs. I was going to say drugs and alcohol, and from personal experience I can vouch for that being true. Although I'm happy to say I have over 5 years sober. Lost 5 friends to drug OD and 1 drank himself to death, all in their 20s. Get married. Cheat on wife. Get HIV. Doesn't realize it. Fucks wife. Impregnates wife. Now wife and baby have HIV. Multiple lives ruined. OMG, when I was doing my counseling practicum I had to go through mock counseling sessions with a highly esteemed professor at the university. The sessions were recorded and I would have to transcribe everything. Sighs. Yawns. OS. Basically he gave me that exact scenario. No one else got that scenario. He said I did well but I needed to work on concealing my internal horror. I think of that session often. Being stuck in a career you don't want and thinking it would be too late to change or to be scared to change. The wrong job can kill your personality and happiness very fking quick. You don't always get to choose right. Normally you pick a path in university or college then stick with it. If you change careers in the middle or after university, doesn't it make it harder to get a job in the new career you picked unless you go back to university, which makes you waste a few years of your life? I'm in a career I hate. Went back to school for a CS degree and put together a nice portfolio. Earned a 4.0. And COVID blew up the job market right before graduation. 3 months and hundreds of applications later and 0 interviews. I fking hate my life and want to jump off a bridge. I worked so hard for nothing. But I get paid a lot and have a job during the pandemic. So, golden handcuffs. But I'm borderline autistic and hate interacting with people and following the path of take anything available. Since the 2008 recession has me in an $80K management job in public relations, and the day-to-day work is so outside of what my comfort level and abilities are I want to puke. I'd be willing to take a 50% pay cut to get into programming. Crack or meth, maybe also underage pregnancy. Underage pregnancy will ruin it. But it could also be the best thing to happen and the kick in the ass you needed to do better. I had a kid at 15. Before I had him I was starting to break under pressure from my mother for the business. She wanted me to push weed for her. Like large amounts. Because it wouldn't stay on my record. And friends had me drinking and none of my friends were my age. They were all at least 2 years older than me. At most 4 years. I was not heading for a good path. But I got pregnant. And it was the kick in the ass I needed to do better. And be better. And realize that I was being abused and manipulated. I got out. I kept my son. I put myself through school with no help from my own family. My baby daddy fiance's family took me in. But it was up to me to pay for anything involving school non-essentials. This was to show me responsibility and budgeting. They helped me when I really needed it. But otherwise just gave me a small push in the right direction. If it wasn't for me getting pregnant that young, I would be a crackhead just like my mother at this point. Marry the wrong person. I had a friend do this right out of high school. The man was controlling and emotionally abusive. She gave up a free ride at college for him. And is now serving jail time for meth. Failed suicide with firearm. Failed suicide by asphyxiation is also pretty bad. Had a patient recently whose brother attempted this way. His brain was without oxygen for roughly 30 minutes. Somehow it still failed. Now he's in a coma with significant brain damage. Very sad. Have kids with a vindictive person who uses them at every turn to hurt you. Eventually alienating them to the point they don't want anything to do with you. It's a living bereavement. A pain that debilitates and never leaves. Just to clarify, I was lucky enough to break the cycle before my ex could poison the kids through sheer persistence and belligerence through the courts. I now see my kids regularly. However, I came into contact with people who are not so fortunate, and my comparatively short experience let me appreciate just how much of a living hell it is. Drunk driving. Or texting while driving. The odds of you causing yourself a serious and lifelong injury are pretty high. But it's the odds of you harming other people that make this absolute worst. The number of times you hear about some happy family getting wiped out by an asshole who didn't want to call a taxi home from the bar. Or someone whose spouse bled out on the side of the road because Karen thought she was fine to have that extra glass of Chardonnay with dinner and everyone was too polite to take her keys off her. It makes my blood absolutely boil. Just imagine that being the explanation someone gives you when the police tell you that you're now the only person in your family left alive. That, regardless of the pain you're now feeling, it's all part of the plan because Jimmy Dumbus over there really had to tell his wife to pick him up a Snickers when she was at the supermarket. Most of the other things that people have mentioned will FCK your life up. But this is one of few things that can, in an instant, and in a lot of ways down to random static in universe, ruin the lives of a whole bunch of people you've never even met before. Not taking care of your teeth. Bro, I drank Coke like water when I had braces. Got them off and my teeth are totally messed up. White spots from demineralization. Cavities where tooth just decayed away. Discoloration. If I could go back I would have either taken better care of my teeth or not had braces at all. Get great grades and get a full ride scholarship to a top school in your field. Turn 21. Go out drinking with friends. Drink too much and stumble out the back door of a bar and fall into a shallow ditch and pass out and die from hypothermia while your friends have no idea where you are. RIP man. A similar thing happened to a guy I used to work with in a homeless shelter. But fortunately he was found after a little while by another one of our homeless guys. Lost most of his toes and had severe frostbite on his hands. He's still a huge drinker despite this. Marrying a narcissist and becoming financially dependent on them. Hell. The bulk of the reason I am so independent even if it kills me is that I watched my mother do it. And I was raised evangelical Christian. So I watched most of the women in my life do it. I don't know how young I was when I started to view marriage itself as a hellhole to avoid. Maybe 8. Teenage pregnancy. Or simply having children you don't really want at any age. Life gets destroyed. That or simply having them with a person you do not get along with emotionally and can't be cooperative in other crucial ways, financial stuff like spending and savings, bills and credit, etc. By doing nothing. By wanting things but doing nothing about it. Not really. Things don't come as easily to them as they want and they don't like making decisions. So they just do nothing about it. They do nothing. They decide nothing. So they get nothing. They see other people getting things. Doing things. They conclude that they have bad luck. That the system is rigged against them. They don't take any responsibility. These things are just happening to them and they have nothing to do with it. These people become more and more bitter and isolated. Unable to get joy from anything. Some people may try to befriend them. Believe their tale of woe but will clearly see that they are doing nothing and will leave them disgusted. When these people die, they will not have made a single positive impact on anyone alive to remember them. I knew a kid at one time that had a large sum of money he received due to an unrelated circumstance. Several thousands of dollars. His first semester away at school he loaned all of his money to a girl who then promptly never spoke to him again. He had no money to afford school going forward so he returned home in shame to work minimum wage jobs for the rest of his life. I might be able to top this. I crossed paths with a guy who desperately wanted to be a medical doctor. Unfortunately he was a terrible student and couldn't get good enough grades to get admitted to any US medical school. So he went to school in the Caribbean. Problem is he couldn't afford it and you can't get federal student loans for Caribbean medical school so he talked some relative of his, can't remember if it was his parents or his grandparents, into signing for several $100,000 of loans. Then he went to med school for like 2-3 years before flunking out because he was a shitty student. So he got stuck with like $200k in student loans and his relatives were on the hook for that amount as well and he wasn't a doctor so he didn't have the salary to dig out of that. He didn't have any sort of degree at all. All he had was massive debt. Thinking it's too late to change. Yeah, this one could really hinder your personal growth. I find happiness in always trying to improve and make myself a better person in every way possible. If you get stuck in a downward spiral and don't have the energy to pull yourself out, it could be real bad. Sexual harassment. Got an email from HR today. What a horrible thing to do. Not only did he ruin his own life, he made the life of someone else a lot harder as well. Complacency. Because there's still so much more that one can achieve beyond what we have now. Not only talking about financially, but on all aspects of life. Downloading Reddit. Unironically, my attention span is probably like a tenth of what it used to be. It's not even a cool addiction. It's one thing to have a junkie in the family, but an internet addict? That is just embarrassing. Getting drunk. Peeing in public. Then getting put on the sex offender registry for the rest of your life. That is so messed up. In college, a group of us got nabbed for peeing in public. I think it was a $30 fine, which stung enough. Talking late 80s. 2 years later, I graduated and have a top secret clearance as an army officer. Because of the potential to work with nuclear artillery shells back then. The rest of the gang of peers started businesses. Foreign SVC officer in the state dept. A top attorney. My goodness. What the hell sort of prudish a-holes call peeing in public a sex offense? Addicted to pornography. You're a straight A student, and suddenly you come to class totally drained of energy. You put on weight. You look aged. Lose all your friends. And motivation to pursue your career. Oh. I got diabetes in 5th grade, and ever since high school I was in a haze of not knowing what the FCK to do because of problems at home. Problems in my mind and heart. And allowing diabetes to stop my own personal clock for years because I didn't think the right way or do things as I should have. So I think wanting to die and doing nothing to make life better is a good way to waste someone's life. And I'm only 25. False pay allegations. Been on the receiving end of such shit. Sucked for about a year. But ultimately, the case fell apart easy. It certainly helped that the accuser had chosen a time and date for the attack where I had a fairly solid alibi, putting me 15 miles away. It wasn't a permanent life-ruining incident. The woman wanted attention as her family was falling apart. Traumatic. Yes. Life-ruining? Definitely not. It does not come up on background checks. It is not on my record. I wasn't even arrested. On the other hand, I've also been on the receiving end of real rape. That's much worse. Become dependent on the system. Be an orphan. Immigrant. Child of incarcerated parents. Go bankrupt. Etc. Etc. Bottom line. Anything that places you at the mercy of the ruling class will probably, ultimately, damage the rest of your life. Throughout my life I heard many stories of freak accidents or stupidity that resulted in mutilation. They left a huge impression on me, and sometimes the most normal activities trigger a little movie in my head where things go wrong and life is fatally destroyed. Anything that leads to physical mutilation or mental incapacitation is worse than death. If we are not talking about horrible things like that but more mundane and deliberate decisions, then I'd say to have kids, and often to get married, or to end up in prison. I'm late but in the South. Not leaving. Get out of your hometown. Get out of your state. Do not stay in the South. Get out and learn what the world has to offer. All these people have no hope. They are all stupid and stuck here. Video gaming. It doesn't get a bad rep. But if you waste your time you close a lot of doors. A lot. Never mind that you have a team of engineers working dedicated and with experience to make you forget that you are in an artificial world governed by their rules. It doesn't even have to be pay to win. Even just Skyrim takes months of your life. Buying a house with a minimal down payment and a 30-year mortgage that you barely qualified for based on your income. Then use credit for all your stuff. Compounding your mistakes. One mistake shouldn't necessarily be enough to ruin your entire life. But if you do happen to FCK up and don't change yourself to learn from, atone for it, you will only ever make things worse, not better. Got yourself fired for poor attendance? Don't go get another job and steal from it. I sincerely had this exact same thing happen to a former co-worker. Just one dumbass decision after another. And refused to acknowledge that this was why his life was such a pathetic mess. No. The world isn't out to make you miserable. You won't stop being a f***ing idiot. Drop out of college to get a job. While I did it to pay my rent, it really hurt later on in life when trying to advance in my career. Now here I am in my 40s. Going back to school to restart my life.